Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto become a devil? Part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists. Check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. Blue eyes blinked as they stared at a group in the distance where an older man was saying something to a group of children. He seemed to be making weird grabbing motions in his old hands. Naru-chan. The owner of the blue eyes turned to the sound of the voice to see a beautiful woman with long red hair with a black hair clip holding up the left side of her hair and violet eyes. She was wearing a loose green dress over a white blouse under it and black wristbands. The woman had a decent sized bump around her stomach showing she was pregnant. "What are you doing over there? Come on, let's get going." "Coming, mom." The boy shouted back as he hurried over to his mother. This boy's name was Naruto Uzumaki, a recently turned 7 years old. He had spiky golden blonde hair and azure eyes. He also had whisker marks on both cheeks. He was wearing a black t-shirt with an orange spiral on the front and blue shorts. "So what was over there that was so interesting?" Kushina Uzumaki asked her son as he made his way closer to her. "I don't know, I couldn't really hear." Naruto answered, "I think he was telling stories, though he was doing this weird thing with his hands. It was like he was grabbing something big and squeezing them." Kushina immediately knew what he was talking about, seeing a lot of perverted men do that when they stared at large breasts. "Naru-chan, if you ever see that man again, never get close to him." "Huh? But why?" The young boy tilted his head in confusion. "Is he a bad man?" "I can't say he's a bad man, but he's not someone I want you near. Okay?" Kushina lowered her head to stare at her son's face. "Okay." Naruto nodded his head, not understanding what was so bad about the man, but agreed with his mother's request. As the two continued walking again, he looked up at his mother. "Hey mom, when is my baby sister going to be here?" "The baby should arrive in a few months." She rubbed her stomach affectionately before smiling at Naruto. "So I'm guessing you're pretty excited about meeting her, huh?" "I'm going to be the best big brother and show her so many things," Naruto said excitedly as he pumped his arms in the air. "We'll go on adventures and have a lot of fun." Kushina giggled at his actions, but remember, that also means you have to be able to protect her as well. "Yeah, and I'll be the strongest around too. Anyone that wants to hurt her will have to go through me," Naruto replied with a grin, pounding his tiny fist against his chest. "I'm going to be as strong as those heroes in the stories you and Papa tell me." "Really? So does that mean you want to be a hero as well?" The redhead raised an eyebrow in amusement. "Of course, I'll be a hero that protects people from danger," Naruto cheered. Kushina smiled at her son's answer before speaking again. "So tell me, Naru-chan, what do you think it takes to be truly strong?" "What does it take?" Naruto repeated in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Well, there are many kinds of heroes. Some are good, but there are some bad ones too," Kushina explained, catching her son's attention. "There are bad heroes?" "Yes, but they are not important now." She shook her head a bit. "If you want to be a good hero, there is something important every one of them must know." "Something important?" Naruto tilted his head. "What is it?" Kushina winked at her son. "I'll leave you to figure it out. Once you think you know, tell me." Turning back to the path, the mother smiled as her son was in deep thought. He was always very smart for his age. "I wonder what answer you'll think of, Naru-chan. Wonder what mama means about being truly strong," Naruto thought to himself as he wondered what she meant. The parent and child continued to walk through the park in silence, making their way towards the park exit, but as Naruto got closer to the gate, he heard a sound coming from behind him. He stopped walking and turned around to face the forest. That sound. Kushina noticed her son stopped walking with her and looked back at him. "Naru-chan? Are you okay?" Naruto didn't answer as he tried to focus on the sound. "It sounds like crying." With that in mind, Naruto started running into the forest, leaving his startled mother behind. "Naru-chan!" she shouted as Naruto disappeared from her sight and his small form vanished from within the trees. Naruto ran through the forest as fast as his little legs could take him, following the sounds of someone crying. He could see a cave just up ahead, and, as he drew closer to it, the sounds seemed to grow louder. The young boy warily stared into the cave, slightly fearful of darkness covering the interior. Shaking his head, Naruto put on a brave face and made his way inside. As he continued walking deeper into the cave, the sounds grew louder and louder. I wonder who would be this far inside a cave. Naruto said to himself as tried to see through the darkness. It was a few minutes later down the path that he noticed a light. Running closer to the light, Naruto emerged from the dark tunnel and looked around in amazement. It was a forest. Was that dark cave just a pathway? Naruto examined the area and noticed there was a ceiling of some sort above the trees. He was still in the cave. But how is there light in a cave? He took a step towards the forest and then another. Soon he was inside the sea of trees. As he looked around, that's when he saw it. Leaning against a tree was a golden scabbard with blue enamel around it. There also seemed to be some kind of writing on top of it. It was giving off a soft glow that seeped into the ground below it. Naruto slowly moved over to it, stopping when he was a foot away. He hesitantly reached out, bringing his hand back a bit before extending it again and gently placed his hand over the scabbard. Just as his hand brushed against the writing, the scabbard's glow began to increase, blinding Naruto for a second. But the light soon disappeared as quickly as it came, giving Naruto the chance to open his eyes. The scabbard was still there, but it felt like something was in his hand now. Pulling his hand back, the boy turned his hand around to see what it was. A girl? Naruto muttered in amazement as he stared down at what appeared to be a tiny girl sitting in his hands with her legs pressed against her chest and her arms wrapped around her legs. "Hello, are you okay?" His question seemed to make the girl flinch before she slowly raised her head to reveal a pair of sad green eyes. The girl was wearing a military-styled white dress with black linings at the bottom of it, 2 detached puffy sleeves, and a black ribbon keeping her blonde hair in a dot. She also had armor on, a silver breastplate, gauntlets that reached up to the sleeves, and a pair of armored boots. "Who are you?" the girl asked as she stared up at the boy with a surprised look. "How did you get here?" "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I came here because I could hear someone crying." Naruto answered with a smile. "Was that you? What's your name?" The girl silently stared at him for a moment before turning her head to the side, the sadness in her eyes returning full force. "It doesn't really matter now. I'm not worthy of it, so I have no name." "How, what do you mean?" Naruto asked in confusion as he put his other hand under the girl and lifted her to his face. "How can you not have a name?" "The name I had was given to me by someone very precious. I was supposed to be his shield from danger, and I failed." Tears built up in her eyes as she spoke. "Because of my moment of weakness, he fell in battle, and the sword I was supposed to protect was shattered." "Battle? What kind of battle? Who was fighting?" Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. The girl wiped her eyes as she started off, a sad smile on her face. "How long has it been since that battle, and me being placed here? 100 years? 2? I've stopped counting ages ago." "Whoa, but you look so young. And that thing over there looks like it was just put there." Naruto pointed at the scabbard, which had stopped glowing, but still had its brilliant shine from the light. "Why were you put here anyway after one mistake? Both the sheath and I do not age. We could be here for thousands of years and nothing would happen to us," she answered as she rose to her feet. "The reason I was put here was because I failed, and this is my punishment. After all, no one would want a useless failure like me." "That's not right. So you made one mistake, that doesn't mean you should be alone," Naruto said with a frown. "You deserve to have as much freedom and happiness as everyone else." The tiny female placed a hand across her stomach and grabbed her arm as she turned her head away. "If I did that, it would be because of the sacrifices of many people. Something like that would be unforgivable." Naruto and the girl were silent, neither one said a word as she turned around in Naruto's hands and was about to move back to her scabbard when she heard something that shocked her to the core. "Then I'll forgive you," Naruto said with a smile, making her turn to him with a shocked look. "Even if those people don't, even if the world doesn't, I'll forgive you. So keep living in this world as long as you want, doing whatever you want." The girl continued to look at Naruto in shock, not realizing tears started to build up in her eyes, not realizing her legs lost their strength, not even realizing as she started to cry her eyes out. The only thing she could comprehend at that moment was the loss of weight she had felt on her shoulders. This child, even if he probably had no idea what she had been talking about, had so easily broken through the layers she put over herself with only so few words. To think, she called out as her crying died down, someone so young could say such things. "Do you even know what you're saying?" "Of course I do." Naruto made an angry pout. "But if you're really sorry about something, then you can be forgiven." Is it really okay for me to still be here? She asked as she looked up at Naruto with hopeful eyes. Can someone like me really continue to live in this world? Her answer was a flick to the forehead which sent her falling onto her back. Ouch. What was that for? You dummy, I didn't mean someone like you. It can only be you. Naruto grinned at her, raising her closer to his face. If you want to live then live, I'll support you in any way. You idiot, you only just met me. The girl shouted back, standing up quickly. Why would you offer to help me so much, besides you're just a child? Baka. Stuff like that doesn't matter. My papa always told me to be kind to people and never turn my back on someone when they need help. Naruto replied, a smile formed on his face as he continued to speak. So let's get out of here. The girl stared up at him for a moment, memories of the past going through her mind before she let out a small giggle. You're just like him. Huh? Like who? Naruto tilted in confusion. A man with an ideal and conviction unmatched by any other who put his people before himself. And had the strength to lead his men onto the battlefield without fear. Wow, he sounds so cool. Naruto's eyes sparkled a bit. Who was he? What's his name? It doesn't matter. She said as she closed her eyes and shook her head. Raising a hand to her chest, she stared up at Naruto with a smile. If you truly mean what you said, then I shall live on. Really? The blonde asked excitedly. That's great. However, you must answer this one question. Her smile turned serious, making Naruto gulp. In my past, I have been a part of a great many battles, so I have never seen what it would be like without them. So if I go with you, I may not get used to such things, and I might possibly cause you trouble at times, but even so, I will ask you this. The blonde girl stared up at Naruto with determined eyes. Will you be my master, the man who I will accompany and swear my complete loyalty to? Naruto was quiet for a moment, not expecting her to ask that. He looked away awkwardly before speaking. Well, I wasn't trying to become your master, I just wanted to. Even so, you must take responsibility for what you said before. The girl said, her eyes seeming to have a bit of fire within them. You're a man after all. I'm only 7. He shouted back. That is irrelevant. I don't even know what that word means, but still Naruto looked down at her for a second before moving her over to the scabbard and placed her on top of it, much to her confusion. Taking a step back, Naruto smiled brightly as he placed his hands on his hips. Alright then, if that's what you want, then I'll become your master. But in exchange you have to do 2 things for me. 2? What are they? The girl asked with both curiosity and suspicion in her voice. The first one is easy, if you want to stay by my side you have to be my friend. Naruto said with the smile growing at the tiny girl's confused look. While having someone serve under me would be cool, that's not what I want. I want us to be friends, almost like family. Is that weird? Yes, extremely. Her quick answer made Naruto's head drop, but she continued with a small smile. But I guess it would not be too bad, however even if we become friends, I will always believe in your safety first before my own. That is not up for argument. That last sentence was already out of her mouth the second she saw Naruto's frown. Fine, I guess that'll work. Naruto mutters with his arms crossed. Though he was against what she said, he knew he wouldn't be able to change her mind. And what is the second condition? She asked, making Naruto's smile return as he remembered what he had been thinking before. He made his way closer to her and knelt down to her level, his face to her now sitting form. I want you to tell me your name. My name? She looked a little surprised at his second request, but I already told you, I have given up my name. Sorry, but that's my second condition. I want to know your name. Naruto said, closing his eyes while crossing his arms. I bet it's something really cool too. Very well, but I can't tell you my true name just yet. She ignored the disappointed look on his face as she continued. Until I feel that I am worthy of it once again, I will go by another name. But I promise you, by my honor, I will tell you when I am ready. I guess, as long as you promise you will, Naruto relented before looking at the girl with a raised eyebrow. So what's your name now? Looking down at her scabbard, the very object she was born from, she seemed to be deep in thought. Before long a smile came to her face. Saber Lily. Huh? Saber Lily, is that your name now? Naruto asked as he tilted his head. Yes, from now on this will be the name I will live by. Saber nodded to herself, proud of herself, and placed her hands on her hips. Does that seem alright with you, master? Saber Lily, I like it. It is a powerful name, but at the same time it's cute, like you. He replied with a smile. Saber's face became flustered as she looked down, making her hair cover her eyes. Don't say such things. Huh, but why? He asked. She replied, looking up at him, I might be just a sheath, but I am still a knight at heart and in my soul. Such things are unsuitable. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. He didn't understand what was so embarrassing about it, but whatever. Shaking his head before speaking again. Alright, but that doesn't mean it isn't true. Masked Saber started to say, but was interrupted by the blonde boy. Anyway, how do I get you out of here? There's no way my mama will let me keep such a thing. Naruto said, as he rubbed the back of his head with a disappointed look on his face. That won't be a problem. Saber smiled as she beckoned him to come closer. As soon as he was about an inch away, she continued. All you have to do is place your hand on my scabbard once again, and I will handle the rest. Just put my hand like this? Naruto asked as his hand placed itself on the golden object. That is correct. Now then, Saber closed her eyes and began to concentrate, glowing a bit before disappearing with the scabbard, which began to shine in a golden light once again before lifting itself up into the air, startling Naruto a bit and making him retract his hand. But the scabbard continued to flow in the air before slowly making its way towards Naruto. Relax, master, it will not harm you. Naruto took in a deep breath and started as the scabbard tilted itself and pointed its tip at his body. Alright, let's do it. The glowing object seemed to respond to him and drew closer to him before slowly entering his body. Naruto's body glowed a bit himself as the scabbard entered his body and a warm, comforting feeling enveloped him. As the light died down, Naruto released a breath. So is it over? Yes, the merging was a success. Saber's voice was heard, making him look around to try and find her. Don't worry, master, I am still here. But where are you, and how come I can only hear you? Naruto asked as he continued to look around. You could say I am inside you, so now you do not have to worry about carrying me all over the place. Saber answered, when I am like this, I can communicate with you without others hearing us. That's great. Naruto said with a smile, but he looked a little disappointed. But does that mean you can't come out when you're inside me like this? Not at all. A small orb of light exited his chest before forming into Saber, but this time she wasn't wearing the armor and had two transparent golden yellow wings coming from her back. One. How is this, master? Much better. Wait, you've got wings now? Naruto asked as Saber flew over to him and landed on his shoulder, sitting down as soon as she steadied herself. I think it is a result of my merging with you. But I have to admit, being given the power of flight is very nice. She said as her wings moved a little bit. So master, shall we leave? I would like to see the outside world after so many years. Alright, Naruto cheered as he started walking out of the room, making his way through the cave. And you don't have to call me master, just calling me Naruto is fine. Very well, Naruto-sama. Saber smiled as she and Naruto made their way out of the cave. After a few minutes, the two came to the exit, the light from outside shining into the cave. A few tears built up in her eyes as a peaceful smile on her face. So beautiful. How long it has been since I've seen the outside world. But you haven't even seen the outside yet, Saber. Naruto commented as he turned his head to look at the girl. He paused when he noticed a few tears falling down her face before turning away in silence. As he walked out of the cave, he wondered what he could say to her. It had been a long time since she saw the outside world, probably centuries. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard someone call out to him. Naru-chan. He turned around to see his worried mother make her way over to him as fast as she could, which was impressive for a pregnant woman. As soon as she got closer to him, she wrapped her arms around him as tight as she could. She released him from the hug and gave him a hard look. Where were you, young man? Do you have any idea how worried I was? Naruto looked down sadly and mumbled out an apology. I'm sorry, mama, I could hear someone crying and… Crying? Who was it? Kushina asked in confusion, wondering how her son had heard a person crying this far out. She knew her son wouldn't lie to her, especially when it came to someone in trouble. He got that kindness from his father. Did you find them? Naruto was about to reply when Saber spoke up. Master, I would advise you not to tell her about me. Since we were the ones that merged together, only you will be able to see and communicate with me. The boy shook his head at that, a little sad he couldn't introduce his mom to his new friend. He looked back at his mother before speaking again. No, I wasn't able to find anyone. I see, Kushina said before standing up, being careful with her stomach. After patting her dress a bit, she stretched her hand out. "Let's go home, Naru-chan." "Okay," Naruto smiled brightly as he grabbed a hold of his mother's hand. The two started walking back through the woods, and Saber was flying next to Naruto's head. "Hey mama?" "Yes, Naru-chan?" Kushina turned her head to look down. "Remember before when you asked me what I thought was important to make a person truly strong?" Naruto said as he looked up and lifted his hand towards the sky. "I think I know it now." "Really now?" Kushina smirked in amusement, wondering what Naruto's response would be. "So what do you think?" "A strong heart and something worth fighting for." Naruto clenched his fist, not noticing the look of surprise on Saber's face. "I'm not strong yet, but I will be." Kushina was surprised at her son's answer. She didn't think he would say something so deep. Naru-chan, she let go of his hand for a second before placing her hands on his shoulders. "Huh?" Naruto looked back at his mother. "Is something wrong, Mom? Did I say something bad?" "No, I'm just surprised at your answer. Something like that isn't what I thought you'd say." Kushina smiled at Naruto before leaning forward and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Pulling back, she continued, "You'll grow up to be a good person. But I want you to promise me something." The boy nodded his head. "Sure, Mom. What is it?" "Don't grow up too fast. I want you to enjoy your life." She raised her hand when Naruto was about to say something. "You can still get stronger. Heck, I have no doubt your father would love to help you with that." It was true, even while he had a very busy job and was a loving father and husband to his family, Minato was still able to somehow find time to train with his martial arts. "But if you grow up too fast, you'll miss out on all the great things that life can bring. I want you to promise me you'll enjoy life, even when you start training, alright?" "Alright, Mom, I promise." Naruto replied with a smile. "Good, and remember when an Uzumaki makes a promise," Kushina said as she stood up straight. "They keep it no matter what." Naruto finished with a cheerful laugh. Saber looked between the two, knowing full well what the mother had been talking about. It was something her first master had not been able to do himself. He had been too busy and pushed himself far in life, but he had never truly enjoyed the life he created for himself. As soon as Kushina grabbed Naruto's hand again, the two started walking. "Good boy, now let's get home. Your father is coming home early today, so we're going out to eat." "Alright," Naruto cheered again as they walked through the woods. Saber now moved to be sitting on Naruto's head. The three enjoyed the peaceful walk through the forest, not noticing a good distance away, a small figure formed from the shadows, and their brown eyes stared at Naruto's retreating back. "So that old scabbard has chosen a new master," the figure said to themselves before their body started to disappear, turning into what appeared to be snakes. "I wonder what kind of person he'll become." Soon the figure disappeared, as soon as they came, leaving the mother, son, and spirit none the wiser. "Come on, Mito-chan, or we're gonna be late on our first day," Naruto called out from the entrance to the Uzumaki residence. Saber was hovering over his shoulder with her arms crossed. "I'll be right down." A young voice called down from upstairs where Naruto and his sister's rooms were. "Just making sure I have everything on E-chan." "Naruto-sama, you have plenty of time before you both have to be at school. And you are both going to the exact same school, so I don't see the rush," Saber said as she watched Naruto put on his shoes. He was wearing his school uniform, which consisted of a black blazer with white accents, a white, long-sleeved dress shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes to finish it off. It had been 11 years since that fateful day when Naruto and Saber met, and the events that had followed the two had been interesting. The two blondes bonded over the years and helped each other in many different ways. Naruto had gotten Saber to lighten up a bit and enjoy herself when the two of them were out and about, and Saber helped Naruto with studying, much to his dismay, keeping a cool head when needed, his training with his father, though the most she could do with that one was give out pointers and words of encouragement, and she also was able to help him with learning to fight with a sword. Now Naruto was in high school, transferring into a school called Kuoh Academy for his third year, and to his parents' comfort it was also the school his sister was transferring into, as well. "Yeah, but I'm excited to see this new school. After all, until recently it was only an all-girls school, and it was also one of the best in the area." Naruto grinned as he thought about the school. Even when it was an all-girls school, there had been a lot of talk about the success rate of the students. "I wonder what it looks like now with it being a co-ed school. They were putting up new buildings for the co-ed students, I think." Saber let out a sigh before giving Naruto a look. Just don't do anything perverted or that will get you in trouble, Naruto-sama. Come on, Saber, you and my mom would kill me if something like that were to happen. Naruto let out a nervous laugh as he thought about what his mother did to perverts. It was not a pretty sight. Besides, he had more respect for women than that and inherited his mother's hatred for perverts, even though it wasn't as much. And when was the last time I got in trouble? Okay, I'm ready. His sister's voice called out, breaking his conversation with Saber before she could reply and making him turn towards her. Did I keep you waiting? Mito Uzumaki was almost a spitting image of their mother. She had red hair that reached just past her shoulders, but she mostly kept it in a high ponytail and violet eyes. She was wearing the school uniform for the school, which involved a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, a black shoulder cape, and matching button-down corset, and a magenta skirt with white accents. "Nope, you got everything?" he asked, to which she nodded her head. Turning his head towards the kitchen, he called out to their mother, seeing as their dad had already left for work. "We're leaving for school." "Okay, stay safe you two, and have a nice day," Kushina shouted back, getting smiles from her children. The two nodded to each other before exiting the house. They began walking down the streets, which were full of other students that were heading for school. Naruto had one of his hands in his pocket and the other was holding his bag by his side, while Mito wore a navy blue backpack. Saber looked around in amusement as some students were actually running to get to school. The same was being said for a few adults heading to work. It is always an interesting sight to see so many people rushing off to their destinations so early in the morning. Saber commented as she flew above Naruto's head to see all the people up ahead. "Some people are like that," Naruto said as he and his sister came to a stop at a crosswalk, waiting for it to turn green before continuing on. He looked down at his sister and noticed she had a nervous look on her face. "Are you okay, Mito-chan?" "Huh? Oh yeah, I'm fine," she replied as she tried to give her brother a smile. But even if she didn't say anything, he already knew she was a little scared. Mito was a shy person when it came to going to new places or meeting new people. It was only after she got to know them that she could really open up to people. "You know you can always come to me when something's bothering you, right?" Naruto said. "I'm fine, Oni-chan, really." Mito put on a brave face as she said that before seeing the look on his face, before seeing his eyes narrow a bit. She looked back down with a sad look. "I'm a little scared. This is my first day at this school, so I have no idea what it's going to be like." Naruto smiled as he reached out and patted his sister on the head. "Don't worry, Mito-chan." She lifted her head and saw her brother giving her a reassuring look. "Just take one step at a time and you'll be fine, but if anything bad happens you just call me and I'll come running." Mito smiled back at her brother before a frown came on her face. "Hey, who says I need you to protect me? I'm a fucking Uzumaki. We're the most baddest family in all Japan." Saber and Naruto sweat dropped at her words, "And you wonder why I refused to leave you alone with Taiya." Naruto sighed as he recalled their curses worse than a sailor cousin before turning back to the road, but after a minute or so he felt a hand on his arm and he turned his head to see Mito was holding onto his arm without looking at him. "Thank you, Oni-chan, I feel a bit better," she said as a bright smile grew on her face. "I can always count on you, huh?" Naruto smirked a bit. "Of course, I'm your big brother after all. It's in my job description to watch over my cute little baby sister. You don't have to add the baby part, you know," the younger girl exclaimed before the siblings began to laugh together, ignoring the looks some people were giving them. As the two continued walking towards the academy, Naruto shifted his gaze towards Mito with a smile on his face before he turned back. "I hope she'll be okay." "Don't worry, Naruto-sama," Saber said from her spot on his shoulder. "Mito will be fine, she is your sister after all." "Yeah, you're right, so how are your powers doing today?" Naruto asked with concern. For the past few days Saber's powers fluxed at times before returning back to normal, meaning his body would glow a little bit before dying down as quickly as it came. While Saber said it was nothing, Naruto was still a little worried. "Like I said before, it is nothing to worry about. The energy bursts have all stopped." "Are you sure you're okay, Saber Lily?" Saber knew when Naruto said her full name, that meant he was either very serious or when he was really concerned about her. She nodded her head before speaking. "I am fine, Naruto-sama, now come on. We need to get to school so you can find your classes, okay?" Knowing she wouldn't budge, He sighed a bit before focusing on the road in front of him and his sister. The school gates were coming up on the right. Yeah, you're right. Letting out a breath, Saber closed her eyes, deep in thought about what she was holding back from telling her master. The truth was, she knew what the causes of her bursts were. Even if she now resided inside Naruto, she could still pick up the energies of multiple beings of both light and darkness in the area. One of the abilities her scabbard had was to protect itself from any magic in the area. In this case, the protection went to Naruto as well, hence the glowing. The glowing itself was a self-defense within the sheath, so that its power, and whoever wielded it, would be undetected by supernatural beings in the area. She wasn't lying either about the glowing stopping, since her power was now basically cloaking Naruto, so he was safe as long as he didn't make contact with anyone dangerous. Hey Saber, check it out. The building doesn't look so bad. She snapped out of her thoughts at Naruto's words, taking a look herself. She had to admit, the academy was very nice and gave an illustrious feel, and look at it. It had cobbled paths and even had a water fountain in the center of the courtyard in the front of the school. There was a main building in the center of the campus which was surrounded by other various buildings. Yes, I agree, I can see why you wanted to come here. It's certainly different from your last school. Saber commented as she examined the designs of the school's exterior. Wow, look at this place. Mito said as she looked at all the buildings. Everything's so big. Of course, this school needs to be. Naruto said as he walked up to the fountain after his sister, making sure to keep her in his sights. It does have students ranging from middle school to college. His sister wasn't paying attention, however, as she stared at the fountain with sparkling eyes. Wow, it's so pretty. Naruto shook his head in amusement before looking at the main building. His eyes soon zoned in, and he caught a glimpse of red passing by one of the windows. He wasn't able to think about it, however, as he felt his arm being pulled by Mito. Let's go on, E-chan, we have to get our class schedules. Alright. No need to pull. Naruto said as he followed his sister inside, not paying attention to the stares he was getting from the other students. After the siblings reached the main office and received their timetables, they headed off toward where Mito's class was. After making sure his sister was okay one last time, the two said their goodbyes before Naruto headed off towards his own classroom. This time Naruto noticed the looks he was getting, jealous looks from the male students, while the female students stared at him with red faces, but he was used to the looks he was receiving. The results of his years of training with his father and Saber had been very good to him. He was at a respectable height of 6'3" with a lean yet muscular body. Ignoring the looks he was getting, he looked down at his paper and then backed up at the class signs. Let's see, Class 3A. Naruto passed by many of the other students that were in the hallway and soon arrived at the classroom. Ah, here it is. Opening the door, he made his way inside to see all the students, and the teachers were there. They turned to see him entering the room. The teacher spoke first. You're Mr. Uzumaki, correct? She greeted Naruto with a smile. Remembering what was on his schedule, Naruto knew her name was Mrs. Emiya. That's me. Sorry if I'm a little late. Naruto replied as he used his other hand to rub the back of his head. My sister and I started today, and I wanted to make sure she got to her class okay. It's no trouble at all, family is important. Just don't make a habit of it. The teacher said before the class briefly. Now everyone, I would like you to welcome Mr. Uzumaki, who starting today is joining Kuoh Academy and will be with us for the rest of the year. It's nice to meet you all. I hope we get along. Naruto said, giving them all a small bow. Okay Mr. Uzumaki, why don't you take your desk, it's right next to Miss Gremory at the window. She said as she pointed towards an empty seat. Naruto nodded his head and walked silently towards his seat. When he sat down, he looked at the girl whose name the teacher had said earlier and had a small blush grow on his face when saw her. The girl was incredibly beautiful, easily one of the most beautiful girls he had ever seen. She was a buxom young figure with a light skin tone, and her eyes were a blue-green color. But what instantly caught his attention was her long, crimson-red hair that reached down to her thighs, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top, and a few bangs that covered her forehead and side bangs framing her face. It was the same color as the one he saw at the window earlier, and he had to admit it was a very nice color to her. Suddenly he felt something hit him in the back of his head, courtesy of Saber, making him snap out of thoughts, and noticed the girl had turned her head towards him and caught him staring. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to stare. Letting out a nervous chuckle as he rubbed the back of his head with an apologetic look. The redhead giggled a little before resting her chin on her hands. Don't worry about it, I'm actually used to it. But still, I apologize. Naruto said as he extended his hand out. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, it's nice to meet you. Same here, my name is Rias Gremory. Rias replied in a polite tone as she reached out and grabbed his hand. Welcome to Kuoh Academy, Naruto-san. After they shook hands, Naruto and Rias smiled at each other before turning back to face the teacher, Naruto not noticing as Rias gave him a glance from the corner of her eye. A little while later, Naruto stood up with a stretch as some of the other students started to leave the room for the lunch break. He grabbed the packed lunch he got from his mother that morning and made his way into the hallway where he could see a lot of students make their way to either get something to eat from the cafeteria or find a place to eat. Taking a look outside, Naruto decided to find a good place to relax under the sun. Saber was resting within her sheath, which was normal since she usually did that when he was in the middle of class. With a smile on his face, Naruto started his way outside and made it downstairs, but before he could walk out the back entrance he heard a voice call out to him. Ani-chan. Naruto turned to see his sister running up to him with her own packed lunch in her hands. Hey Mito-chan, what are you doing here? He asked as his sister stopped right in front of him. I didn't think you guys had lunch break the same time we did. Of course, it's the same school after all. Mito said, making Naruto scratch the back of his head. So are you going outside too? The blonde teen nodded his head. Yeah, I was thinking about finding a good tree to relax under. Is it alright if I join you? She asked with a puppy dog look. Oi, Naruto's eyebrows twitched a little. You don't have to do that, you know, it's fine. But don't you want to try to mingle with your classmates? But it's only the first day, I just want to get used to the school first. Mito replied with a huff as she crossed her arms. Besides, what about you? You're no. Oh, Naruto-san. A female voice called out, making the siblings turn their head to see Rias and another girl walking up to them. Going outside for lunch? Rias-san, Naruto greeted with a smile. Yeah, the two of us were going to go find a tree or someplace with a good shading. Huh? Two of you? Rias blinked before looking down a little to see Mito, who moved behind her brother when Rias came up to them. Leaning forward a bit, Rias gave the younger redhead a smile. Oh hello there, I'm Rias Gremory. Mito just moved closer to her brother, making him frown a bit. Come on Mito-chan, be nice. Naruto said as he took a step away. Mito looked nervous for a second before bowing her head. My name is Mito Uzumaki, it's nice to meet you senpai. Rias looked a little surprised at the girl's sudden shout, but Naruto just let out a laugh while the second girl giggled into her hand. Naruto patted a blushing Mito on the head. Good job Mito-chan. A little loud at the end, but not bad. He turned to Rias and the girl with a smile. Sorry about that, Mito-chan is very shy when it comes to meeting new people. I've been trying to help her out with it. Oh my, what a caring older brother you are. The second girl said in a sweet tone. She was definitely up there with Rias in the beauty department, and like Rias she also had a very buxom form. She had long black hair, violet eyes, and creamy-colored skin. Her hair was tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two antennae sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. Well, I try at least. Naruto rubbed the back of his head in an awkward manner. I'm Naruto by the way, nice to meet you. The girl giggled again before speaking. My name is Akeno Himejima, and I hope your first day has been good so far. I don't have any complaints. Naruto shrugged before looking back at Rias. So are you two getting lunch as well? Yes, actually, we were heading to our club room to eat lunch. She replied, smiling a bit. We usually keep our things in there when we're at school. Cool, so what kind of club is it? Naruto asked. The Occult Research Club, Rias answered. I'm actually the president of the club, while Akeno is my vice president. Occult research? You mean like the dark arts of the Middle Ages and stuff like that? Naruto raised an eyebrow as he felt Mito grab onto his arm again. His sister had a fear of ghosts, which he used to have before he met Saber. That's right, but we also deal with the more recent type of supernatural subjects. Such things like devils, angels, and even yokai. That sounds kinda interesting. Naruto commented, not seeing the small glint in Ria's eyes as she moved closer to him. So, do you believe in their existence? Rias asked as she leaned forward a bit. Naruto's face reddened a bit, a strange tingling feeling went through for a second before shaking his head and clearing his thoughts before answering. I guess I do believe in them. After all, with an ancient and powerful magical spirit living inside you, it was kinda hard not to believe that other things like that could exist. Sorry Riaz-san, but can you take a step back? You're a little close. That seemed to surprise Riaz a little before she took a step back with blinking eyes. Oh sore. Perverts. Get back here and receive your punishments. The four turned to the courtyard to see three male students being chased by the female kendo club. The three boys rounded the corner and tried to escape, only for a few girls to already be there and capture the three before tying them up and pulling them away. Naruto and Mito noticed that no one seemed to react at all when this was happening. Suo, I'm gonna take a guess and say that this has happened before? Naruto spoke up as he and the girls watched the group disappear into one of the buildings. Unfortunately, those three you saw there are known as the perverted trio. Akeno explained, those three are the most perverted students in the school, so they end up in a lot of situations like this. I see, Naruto replied with a sweat drop. They had titles for perverts? It must seem like a paradise for them, I guess, being in a school almost full of female students. Maybe so, and what about you, Naruto-san? Akeno asked, raising a hand to her mouth with a sly look on her face. You must be enjoying it as well, being in a school almost completely filled with women. Well, I'll admit I would be lying if I said it wasn't nice. But I'm not really into peeping and stupid junk like that. If I do find a girl I'm like, then I'll say to her face, not do something perverted or stupid. Naruto crossed his arms before looking at the sky. We should probably finish up our lunch quickly, break should be ending soon. Riaz nodded her head in agreement, yes you're right. Well, I'll see you later, Naruto-san, and it was nice meeting you, Mito-san. Turning around, Riaz gave Naruto and Mito a smile before starting to walk away. Akeno bowed her head a bit with a smile of her own as she followed after the redhead. Hey Riaz, Naruto called out, making the girl look back at him. I don't really like formalities that much, so you can just call me Naruto. The girl nodded her head, alright, as long as you don't use San for my name too. It's a deal, Naruto grinned as he watched Riaz and Akeno make their way to the old school building. Shaking his head a bit, the blonde looked down as his sister. Why don't we go eat? We only have a few minutes left. Those two were really pretty, weren't they, Oni-chan? Mito asked her brother as the two made their way towards the trees. Yeah, they were, Naruto nodding his head as he found a place under a tree and sat down, his back pressed against the bark. I wonder what that feeling before was, oh well. With a shrug he placed his bento on his lap as his sister sat down next to him. Whatever it was, it's gone now. After hearing the school bell rang, the students made their way either off campus or to their club rooms. Naruto was waiting at the bottom steps for his sister to appear. After a few minutes she came down with a smile on her face, but she wasn't alone either, she was talking with another female student with long dark purple hair and hazel eyes. So it looks like she's made a friend, I'm glad. Naruto thought to himself with a smile. Saber, who had woken up a few minutes earlier, smiled at her master. What did I tell you about Naruto-sama? Mito will be fine. Mito took notice of her brother leaning against a wall and gave him a little wave before turning to her companion. See you tomorrow, Miss Ao-san, it was nice meeting you. Yes, you too, Miss Ao replied with a nod. I hope you enjoy coming here, Mito-san. Mito nodded her head with a happy expression before hurrying up to her brother. Hey Oni-chan, did you wait long? Not really, Naruto said as he removed himself from the wall, so it looks like you were able to make a friend. Mito shook her head. No, she was just helping me out in class because it was my first day. I wouldn't call us friends. She went over to her shoe locker and switched out her shoes before turning to her brother. Her name is Miss Aoyamashi and she's our class representative, so it's normal for her to help me. Well, it's not like you're not going to be friends with her, Naruto commented as they started walking side by side towards the gates. All you have to do is have more confidence in yourself. But that's easier said than done, a loud voice cut her off. Hey, apologize. As they passed through the gates, they saw a regular street thug standing in front of a petite girl. She had white hair, with two long bangs going past her shoulders in the front and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut and two black cat-shaped hair clips on each side of her hair. She was wearing the Kuoh Academy girls' school uniform, But unlike her sister Ria's and Akeno, she didn't have a shoulder cape. "Are you listening to me?" The girl didn't say anything as she looked down at the ground where a crushed candy lay on the floor. "You were the one who bumped into me." She gave the man a blank stare, "And then you made me drop it. Why, you little brat? You think you're better than me?" The thug shouted as he lifted the hand with the bat, ready to swing it down. But, as he was about to send it down, Naruto appeared in front of him, holding his arm from below with his right hand. "What the?" Attacking someone who is unarmed, let alone a girl. Naruto lifted the arm he was holding, pulling the thug closer before quickly raising the elbow of his left arm and ramming it hard into the man's stomach, raising the elbow upon contact to deliver a sharp blow to the thug's heart. The thug only had time to release some spit from his mouth before Naruto sent a kick at his supporting leg, making his fall onto his back hard. Naruto slammed a foot onto the man's chest, getting a yell of pain as a little blood came out of his mouth. "You're really pathetic, be glad I only bruised your organs and cracked a few ribs." "Damn you," the thug tried to speak out before he felt Naruto press harder into his chest. "Who the hell are you?" "Me? I'm just a regular student." Naruto replied with a smirk, "And, as a student, I am supposed to watch out for Mike Mai. Now I suggest you leave before I do a lot worse to you." He lifted his foot off the thug and took a few steps back. The thug slowly got to his feet, holding his chest as he glared at Naruto. "You're going to pay for this." After that was said, the man ran away as fast as he could. Naruto placed a hand in his pocket as he watched the man leave with a bored look. "Yeah, not the first time I heard that one." He looked back at the white-haired girl who stared blankly at him with hazel eyes. "Are you okay?" "Yes, I am fine." That was all she said before she looked towards the floor where her candy had fallen. Mito ran up to her brother and handed him his bag, which he absent-mindedly took with a small thanks. Naruto blinks a few times, following her gaze to the candy. Letting out a sigh, Naruto reached into his bag and pulled out a small box of Pocky. Walking over to the girl, he held it out to her. "Here, you can have this." She turned back to him and saw the box in his hand before looking back at his face. "What? You lost your snack because of that guy, and I doubt he'll get you a new one, so here." Looking back between Naruto and the box once more, the girl took the box. "Thank you." "No problem, I didn't want it anymore anyways." Naruto lied with a smile. He was planning on eating it later, but sometimes he was too nice. "You're a student at Kuoh Academy as well, so it's fine. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, a third-year student. And this is my younger sister, Mito Uzumaki." His sister slowly nodded her head in greeting. "Koneko Taoju, first year." The newly named Koneko replied, making Mito look at the girl in surprise. She was 4 years older than her, but still looked so young. "Well, it was nice meeting you, Koneko." Naruto bowed his head a little before raising his head a bit. "But we have to get going. We'll see you later." The white-haired girl only stares at the blonde, and his sister started walking away. After a few seconds, her eyes went to the box of Pocky she was holding. She opened it and took out one of the Pocky sticks before starting to eat it, pausing for a second. "These are good," Koneko said to herself before she continued to eat more of them at a slightly faster pace as she started walking back through the gates and heading towards the old buildings. As Naruto and his sister made their way down the path, 2 pairs of eyes were watching him from one of the roofs of the buildings. One pair of eyes belonged to Akeno, who had an amused look on her face, and if you looked closely, a hint of lust. She had her arms crossed under her breasts, a little shiver going through her body as she recalled the burst of speed and power Naruto used against the thug before sending him crashing into the ground. Foo, he was certainly vicious with that man, wasn't he? Akeno spoke up as she laughed in her hand. "I can see why you're so interested in him, Buchu." "True, and that quick finish was something I've never seen a normal person his age do before. It was almost as fast as Kiba, but was that really his true strength?" Ria said with curiosity evident in her voice. "And during the break he was able to negate my charm magic, something I've never seen a human do." "You think Naruto-san is not human then? That he is some kind of supernatural creature?" "I can't be sure, he doesn't seem to emit any sort of energy from him. Usually when it comes to sensing what a person is should be simple, since every being has a sort of presence to show what they are. Whether they are angel, fallen angel, devil, dragon, or even human, they all have a presence showing they're there. But with him it's different, it's as if he's not there." Riaz explained as she placed her hands on the railing, thinking about earlier when he was standing in front of her If she hadn't seen him the first time, she probably wouldn't have noticed him. An image flashed in her mind of his smiling face, making a small blush form on her cheeks before continuing. I have to admit though, Naruto-kun is definitely one of the most interesting people that I've ever met. Akeno quickly noticed a blush on her friend's face. Oh my, is someone already starting to have a crush on Naruto-san? Oh, what would people say if they found out that the famous Ria's Gremory was developing feelings for a human? Akeno said as she smiled innocently at Rias, who had now leaned against a railing. Who knows? It's possible. Rias gave her friend a small grin before looking back towards Naruto's retreating form. There's something about him that makes me want to learn more about him, she said, closing her eyes as a thought came to mind, and maybe he might just make a good addition. Meanwhile, Naruto let out a sneeze before looking around in confusion. Where'd that come from? I'm not getting sick, am I? I doubt it's Naruto-sama. As long as I've known you, you've never gotten sick before. Saber replied as she floated in the air. Maybe someone is talking about you. Maybe, huh? Naruto looked up at the sky and noticed an object with wings flying overhead, and whatever it wasn't a bird. The object quickly disappeared, making Naruto blinked in confusion. Did I imagine it? Wait, what's that? Seeing something float in his direction, Naruto reached out and grabbed it. Bringing it closer to his face, he examined what he caught. A black feather? It can't be. Saber thought as she stared at the feather with a calculative look. There's no doubt I'll have to keep my guard up for Naruto-sama's sake. Ani-chan, let's go. Mito shouted a good distance away from him. Naruto shook his head a bit before looking at his sister. Okay, I'm coming. The blonde quickened his pace to catch up to his sister, releasing the feather from his grip. Saber followed after the siblings, looking back with a glance towards the feather, watching as it slowly hit the ground. It's been over 1 month since Naruto and Mito started attending Kuoh Academy, and the two of them couldn't say that small amount of time hadn't been entertaining. Thanks to Naruto's encouragement, Mito was able to make a few friends in her class, though she was still shy at times when she talked to them. Surprisingly, Mito had actually gotten to talk to Koneko a few days after they had met, and according to Mito, the two girls got along really well, even though Koneko seemed a bit cold at times. Naruto suspected that his sister was able to get the courage to talk to the white-haired girl because of the fact that they were so close in age, but Naruto was fine with that as long as his sister had no trouble with making friends. Naruto's time at the school had been interesting up to that point as well. He didn't know how it happened, but in just a week he seemed to become very popular, and when he had tried to ask Rias about it, she had given him a smile and told him it was because of his actions on the first day. Apparently, rumors spread about him defending Koneko from the thug, and that seemed to help him gain a lot of points with the other students. Speaking of Rias, from the second day onward the two of them had quickly become friends. It was weird at first, because he would get this weird feeling around her the first couple of times before shaking it off, but soon the feeling disappeared and Rias started to act a little different, kinder, and more honest, if that made sense. He had also got along with Akeno, who was with Rias most of the time he saw her, and people were talking about how the new transfer student had become friends with Kuoh Academy's two great ladies again with the weird titles. At the current moment, Naruto was in the gym, getting himself ready for a sparring session he promised with an underclassman. Naruto took a deep breath as he stared at his opponent, holding a bakken with both hands. Are you ready for Kiba? Whenever you are, Uzumaki-senpai. His fellow blonde replied with a smile as he too held a bakken in his hands. Kiba was a second-year student with short blonde hair and gray eyes, and like Naruto he wore the Kuoh Academy's uniform for its male students. The two had met when Naruto had walked in on Kiba training by himself a few days ago, and after the two talked for a bit they agreed to have a match. Alright then, Naruto said as he shifted into a stand, his eyes going narrow and focused. Kiba took a stance himself as he stared down the third-year student. The air around the two blondes went quiet as they studied each other, muscles tense and neither moving an inch. From the sidelines the female kendo club were watching the two with red faces. Kiba and Naruto were both known as the two most attractive guys at the school, and for them to be seen together was any female student's wet dream. Adding the fact that they were about to fight with swords and possibly causing a sweat only seems to sweeten the deal for the girls. Don't hold back now, Naruto shouted as he dashed forward, surprising Kiba with his speed before slashing downward. The younger blonde managed to sidestep to evade Naruto's downward slash before countering with a side slash, but Naruto quickly raised the upper half of his sword and blocked the attack. After holding Kiba's attack back, Naruto lifted his Bakken until Kiba's weapon touched the hilt, and with a quick twist he pushed his opponent's sword back before attacking with his sword again. Kiba loosened his grip on his sword hilt before spinning to downwards and blocked Naruto's attack, pushing forward and moving swiftly to the side before attacking from the side. Naruto twisted his legs around and retaliated with a 180 spin, slamming one of his feet firmly on the ground as he blocked the attack. Sounds of wood clashing were heard throughout the room as Kiba and Naruto sent attacks at one another while at the same time blocking each other's moves. Members of the female kendo club were amazed at the speed and technique that the two boys were demonstrating. It was way above what any of them were capable of. The two continued sending attacks back and forth, trying to get the advantage on the other. As their swords clashed once again, the two seemed to measure each other, trying to figure out their next move. Kiba pushed Naruto away before leaping back and went into a stance with the sword level with his head. He took a breath as he quickly analyzed his opponent's form. His fellow blonde was good with a sword, really good. Naruto's skill with a sword was very impressive. Each blow he threw was accurate and effective, no wasted movements. Kiba knew that if he hadn't been a devil, then it would be obvious to who would have lost by now. Maybe he should go a little faster. Kiba crouched down a little more and his legs tensed once again. Narrowing his eyes slightly, Naruto shifted his stance and moved his Bakken to one hand as he crouched as well, his eyes studying Kiba's stance before looking back at the younger blonde's face. The two seemed to be waiting for something, neither moving from their spots as they quietly watched each other. Naruto tightened his grip before swinging his sword to the side and charged forward with a leap forward. Kiba reacted at the same time, bringing his sword higher as he charged forward as well. To Kiba's surprise, as the two swung their swords at each other, Naruto's Bakken, which was originally heading towards his body, quickly changed directions and made contact with Kiba's. The two passed each other with a spin and came to a halt with their backs to each other. Everyone looked in amazement before the sound of something hitting the floor was heard and turned to see the top halves of Kiba and Naruto's Bakkens lying on the floor. No way. Their weapons broke. I've never seen that happen before. Kiba looked at his broken sword in surprise, but his attention was taken away from it as Naruto called out. "Sorry about that, I didn't mean for that to happen." He rubbed the back of his head before sticking his free hand out to Kiba. "I guess this means we ended in a draw, hopefully we could have another match again sometime." He aimed for my Bakken with the exact same amount of strength I was using, and when the two attacks met, the force behind them made the swords break. But for him to have figured that out and executed it so quickly, Kiba thought to himself, but on the outside he just smiled and shook Naruto's hand. "Yeah, Uzumaki-senpai, I look forward to it." "Ma, you don't have to be so formal. You can call me Naruto," the older blonde said. "Sure, Naruto-senpai." Kiba nodded before turning to the girls that had been watching. "Sorry for interrupting you girls. We'll get out of your way so you can get back to practice." One of the girls stepped up with a wave of her hands. "Oh, you don't have to worry about that. It was amazing to see you two fight so well." "Thank you, but there are much better fighters than us." Naruto smiled before making his way out of the building. "Sorry to leave like this, but I have to go help my little sister with her homework." The girls seemed to swoon a little at that. The fact that a strong, handsome teenager was so caring about his sister seems to be a positive in their books. Kiba watched as Naruto left the building, thinking to himself with a smile. "I can definitely see now why Buchu is so interested in him." Later that night, Anne finished Naruto sighed as he leaned back into his chair. After eating dinner with his family and helping out his sister, he had gone to his room to work on his own homework. Taking a glance at the clock, he saw it was just reaching 11. I guess it took me a bit longer than I thought." "Naruto-sama." Saber called out from behind him. "What's up, Saber?" Naruto turned his around to see she had an apologetic look on her face. "Hey, is something wrong?" Naruto didn't have to worry about people listening in on his conversation with his tenant while they were inside his room since it was so late and his family was probably asleep. The tiny girl let out a sad sigh. "There is something important I need to inform you about. Truthfully, I would have preferred to not involve you in that world and live a long, peaceful life, but with the way things are going I have no choice." "That world?" What are you talking about? Naruto looked at his oldest friend with a confused look. Before I begin, Naruto-sama, I want you to know that I've only been holding back from telling you this because I didn't want you to be put in danger. Saber shook her head a few times before looking back at Naruto again. As you know, I am not exactly from the normal world you live in. The truth is, Naruto-sama, is that there is another world that lives together with this one. I should begin with the most important thing first. There are 3 groups of supernatural creatures called the 3 factions. Saber explained almost everything she knew about the devils, angels, and fallen angels' history. About the 3 races always fighting against each other, and the Great War that took many lives from each side. She even told him about the sacred gears, powerful artifacts created by God to bring miracles to enact miracles in the worlds. When she finished explaining everything to Naruto, the boy blinked his eyes in amazement. Wow, just wow, I can't believe such a world could really exist. I mean, I already expected it after I met you, but I've never thought it would be something like this. I know it's a lot to take in, but everything I've told you is true. Saber said as she placed a hand over her chest. I swear this in my honor, as a knight. Naruto let out a breath as he slumped back into his chair, making it turn a bit. It's not an issue of whether I believe you or not, but like you said, it's a lot to take in. Naruto replied before he glanced at the blonde girl. Anyway, why are you telling me this now? It's because you've been unknowingly involved with the supernatural world recently, and I needed to tell you this now, before something bad happens. Saber answered, now crossing her arms. Do you recall what happened before you started school? You're talking about the glowing, right? Yes, you see, the glowing was caused by one of the abilities my scabbard has. It's a way for it to protect itself from possible dangers in the area. That way it wouldn't be used by any supernatural beings that would use it on innocent civilians. Saber said, explaining some of her powers to her master. It basically acts like a detection filter, which means, as long as you didn't make any direct contact with a member of the 3 factions, none of them would have even noticed you. So I'm guessing from that, I did meet someone then. Naruto crossed his own arms in thought before remembering what happened after his first day of school. That black feather was that object I saw that day, one of those fallen angels? Correct, but I doubt they noticed you since you didn't make direct contact, and they weren't the ones I was talking about. Saber took a breath before giving Naruto a hard stare. I will be direct, that friend of yours, Ria's Gremory, is a devil, as well as a few other students in your school. Is Ria's-chan a devil? That caught Naruto by surprise, but the blonde shook his head before looking at Saber. But that doesn't mean threat, right? I mean, she's my friend and a kind person. Naruto-sama, I can't say what kind of person she is, nor do I know if she is a threat. Saber said before giving him a comforting smile, but if you want to believe in her, I won't stop you, but just remember to keep your guard up until you can say that you truly trust her. Understand? Yeah, I understand. Naruto nodded. And don't let your feelings for her affect your judgment. Saber added with a knowing look. Naruto's face went a little red at that. It was true that during the time the 2 of them had talked and hanged out, Naruto had started to feel something for the redhead girl. After all, she was his type of girl. She was kind, very smart, really beautiful, that wasn't faked by any means, strong-willed, and much more. Shaking his head, Naruto looked down at Saber. Don't worry, I won't. But I still believe Ria's-chan is a good person. I understand, Naruto-sama. Saber softly smiled up at him. This was the reason she was happy she left that cave to be with her new master. There was something about him that gave off a warm feeling to others, like it made you want to stand by his side and believe in him, just like how it was with her first master. Saber quickly dismissed those thoughts as she remembered something else she wanted to talk to Naruto about. There is something else I would like to talk to you about. Seriously, Saber, any more information and my head might blow up. Naruto jokes as he stood up from his chair, turning off the light as he made his way to his bed. So what is it? I want you to start training on using my power so you can be prepared in case you run into any supernatural enemies. Saber said as she turned herself into a glowing ball before re-entering his body. The girl had already given her master an explanation on her powers, so she knew he had an idea of what she was talking about. That sounds cool, but how does that work? Naruto asked as he got under the covers. It doesn't sound easy. I guess the easiest way to explain it would be saying That we would be training you to use my power at will, and to do this properly we will need to be completely sync with each other. Saber explained. I will admit this training will be difficult at first, but as long as we work together it will be alright. Alright Saber, I'm going to do my best. Naruto replied before turning on his side. Good night Saber. Good night to you, as well Naruto-sama. It's been 1 week since Saber had revealed the supernatural world to Naruto, and the two of them began their training for Naruto harness and control Saber's powers. The first day started with Naruto just learning how to bring the power out, and the second day was spent with them figuring out how long he could hold onto the power before reaching his limit. When the third day arrived, the two decided that Naruto would finish up school and make sure Mito got home safely first before he and Saber would go into the woods to practice. This continued for the next few days, and now Naruto was starting his 7th day. At the moment he was resting his body as he leaned back against one of the school trees in the courtyard. It was lunchtime, and he had a peaceful expression on his face as he listened to the wind pass by. Good afternoon Naruto-kun. Opening his eyes, he saw Rias looking down at him with a smile. I see you're by yourself today. Where is Mito-san? Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.